Grief is such an overpowering emotion, especially after losing someone so close to you. It can take months, years, even decades to get back to normal, if that's even possible after experiencing a significant loss. This podcast was created to help you move through and release the emotions, allowing you to heal the hurt and begin living again. Listen in as I chat with medical professionals, grief workers, and people who have first-hand experience in losing a loved one, what their experience has been, and what they did to help heal themselves and those around them. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I believe there is always a silver lining if you're willing to look. Welcome to the Release Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Release Grief Podcast. I am your host, Faith Sage, and I am honored to be here today with Ronni Morgan. Welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, even though it is all about grief. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I love learning from everyone. And this topic here, I think a lot of people are I don't want to say affected by it, but they have like a lot of these internal things happening in their world that causes them a lot of grief, a lot of stress. Can you talk to me about that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think for a long time, I didn't have any concept of what it meant to grieve, really, because I had never lost anyone close to me. And that's what everyone thinks about when they think about grief, like, oh, you must have lost somebody close to you. And I really hadn't for a very long time. And it wasn't until my health started deteriorating out from under me that I started realizing slowly that that's what I was feeling. And it took a lot of conversations, a lot of therapy, a lot of my own spiritual journey for me to really realize, like, wow, like this is what's impacting me right now. I'm grieving this life that I thought I was going to have. And I just think it's not talked about enough. A lot of people, very few people go through life able bodied their entire life. And that's really where I think it comes in a lot, at least in my life, that it's like, wow, this is what grief is. And I see it. And it's a little different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think grief can take on, I think me personally, I believe that grief, we're with grief every day. We sit with it, we eat with it, we sleep with it, we, bond with it throughout our entire
Mhm.
life. And it becomes this almost like the shadow in the background that's always there, but it's not talked about, it's not realized, it's not brought to the forefront. And I've talked a lot about grief where it's not necessarily losing a loved one, but it's like losing an identity, losing a job, losing a house, losing $1 million. Like all of these are grief moments. Someone telling you no, that's a grief moment.
Mhm.
And we hear that stuff and we go through these emotions, but we're not taught how to deal with grief. We're just told to shut up, get back to work, you're fine, deal with
Yep.
it. Just psh. So
Absolutely.
how how has like this medical issue, do you mind sharing what it is? What the medical issue is?
No, I don't mind sharing at all. When I was 25, I've always been a very physically healthy person. I was very active. I was a runner. Like everything was. I mean, I have endometriosis, but I was used to that,
Mhm.
and I was dealing with that from a very young age. And then one day, my hips just kind of went mushy, and I had no idea what was going on. I had never had an issue like that in my life, and that started a very long journey of being told by doctors that I was healthy, it would correct itself, everything looks fine, and nobody could really tell me what was going on. And then fast forward 5 years, I found out that I needed both my hips replaced at the
Wow.
age of 29, 30. And then I thought maybe everything would go back to normal after that. And what actually happened is things continued to deteriorate until they finally found out that I have a genetic disorder called hypermobile Ehlers Danlos Syndrome.
That's
And
awful.
that's a mouthful, absolutely. And it is essentially, it's a genetic disorder that causes, like, my body makes faulty collagen. So all of my connective tissues in my body are weak and cannot support my joints, organs, like all kinds of digestive tract, like all kinds of things. Our entire body is made of connective tissues. And so everybody that has there's I believe 12 or 13 different types of Ehlers Danlos syndrome. I have the hypermobile variety. And for me, everybody, it shows up a little bit different. So for me, it shows up in my hips deteriorating. My knees are following suit. I have instability in my cervical spine, which causes chronic neck and head pain, serious digestive issues, and several comorbidities that come along with EDS. So it's just a cacophony of chaos in
That's a
in
good
my
term.
body. Yeah.
Oh my
um
gosh.
yeah, so that is that's pretty much once they figured out that I had that, it started answering. I was in the hospital for 16 days back in early 2020, when my neck started to go. And that's when my doctor was like, "Have you ever heard of this Ehlers-Danlos syndrome?" And I was like, "Nope, never heard of it in my life." And he wanted me to do some research and read about it, and then he came back the next day and we talked about it, and then he sent a referral off to a geneticist. Took me about 9 months to get in with her, and then that's when I started finally getting some answers.
Do they have like any ways of not curing, but like alleviating some? Because it sounds painful. It sounds
Yeah.
like you never know when something's gonna happen. Uh,
Hmm. Exactly. There's not any that like there's no treatment for EDS. They basically can only treat the symptoms as they come up. So having my both my hips replaced, I have a lot of mobility aids that I use depending on the day. I have neck brace, I have crutches, I have a wheelchair, I've had a walker in the past. I have a lot of braces, so I have ankle braces, knee braces that I have to wear if I'm going to be doing a lot of walking. So it's really just trying different therapies and trying to see what helps. I've been in and out of PT a lot, to varying degrees of
uh,
success. So yeah, it's just kind of treating things. It's a bit like whack-a-mole, I usually is what I say.
oh,
Like,
that's great for a life plan.
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like something new might start happening and you have this legitimate fear. You're like,
Right.
is this going to go away in like a day, or is this going to be my new reality? And you never really know what the answer is going to be until you give it some time. Um, I
Yeah.
never could have guessed that when a headache set in back in 2020, that it was going to be the reality for the rest of my life. And that's
Wow.
where we're at, so it's a game of whack-a-mole, unfortunately.
Yeah. I could imagine like you live with fear a lot. Like, what am I going to wake up to today? Or,
Hmm.
like what's going to happen now? Oh my gosh, I just, I bumped my arm or whatever the case may be. And now it's like, okay, is this going to affect me? Like,
Yep.
is the end,
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Because then
I'll
your
tell you
mind starts,
what,
go ahead.
when I had that headache set in and I ended up in the hospital for 16 days, I was like, what, like, am I dying? Like, like, do I have a brain tumor? Like, is this it? Like, is this how I go, at this young of an age? And it can be very scary, when you don't have answers and the doctors don't know how to help you. And then some gaslight you, and then you
Oh,
gaslight yourself. And then it's just, you know, so it's a lot.
yeah, yeah, and it's interesting how things just like all of a sudden they just like come into play because you said you were healthy for most of your life, I'm guessing,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
just running, and then all of a sudden you have now it's almost like hip dysplasia, similar
Kinda.
to it. Yeah, and
Hmm.
just wow. So they don't know like if anything triggered it within your body or um
It's it can get worse with age. So I had issues when I was young with like a lot of knee pain and stuff like that, and they couldn't figure out what was going
okay.
on. And there were little things. I was always twisting my ankles or having like subluxations in my joints, so where your joints just partially dislocate and like go right back into the socket. But it's I just had all these things, and unfortunately, a lot of the time my parents didn't know what to do with it, and a lot of the time it was like, you're being dramatic, or it can't possibly be that bad because the doctors can't figure out what it is. And
Right.
that led to a lifetime of me gaslighting myself.
Yeah.
Um, it's only been in probably the last maybe 5 or 6 years that I've stop doing that to a degree, but it's still a challenge.
Sure. Leading right into like, how are you mentally preparing yourself like with this? Not preparing yourself, but like keeping it on the good so you're not like spiraling in the mindset all the time. What are you doing in that area?
So I have an amazing therapist that I have seen since 2018. I started seeing her between my hip surgeries. So she's been with me. I've been with her now for, quite a long time. And she's helped me immensely. I write, I've done a lot of blogging. My blog's actually under construction. So TBD on when the new one's up with all of my old blogs in place. But I have found community in sharing my story through writing.
Mhm.
And that has really helped me process a lot of this and realizing I have a lot of internalized ableism that I've had to face. And
From
it's
yourself or
something
from other people? From yourself. Yeah.
I would say both, but definitely from myself is the one that's been the most difficult to work through, because that kind of thought process is programmed so deeply, and it has been it's been a journey trying to navigate that and to realize that all of this isn't my fault, that I'm not doing anything to make it so,
Right.
that I've actually done a lot to try and prevent a lot of what's happened, and it was never enough. So then you talk about grief, like that is such a huge blow to your psyche, um to realize that you tried your best and you initially essentially failed, if you will. But even that's like a thought process you have to work through.
Boy.
I've had a lot of conversations like ours with just random people that have crossed my path. um I'm asked regularly, like, when's your TED talk? i'm like I'm like, if only. I would love to have that kind of platform. It's because so many people are dealing with this on varying levels and with different kinds of illnesses, and we are so there's such a huge community of us out there, but we're so detached from each other because a lot of us that are dealing with these chronic health issues are isolated.
Mhm.
And then the pandemic happened, and then that isolation got even worse.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I mean, for me it's just been therapy and talking about it and writing about it, um and having, there are a few people in my life who are like, my people, and they have been really, really important in this whole process of helping me realize and reminding me this is not your fault. You didn't do anything to make this happen. You're not doing anything to keep this happening. It's just the lot in life that this is what you've been handed. These are the cards you've been dealt. And when I think of it in those terms, I'm like, okay, you're right. This is the hand that I've been dealt. What am I going to do with it?
Right.
And that's the question that I have asked myself regularly. And that's what keeps me going every day, I think.
I love that, because it's not like you can just go ahead and go back to sleep and change everything.
Nope.
It's not that simple, it's not that easy. It just doesn't happen either. Um, so kudos to you. So do you have a book in the works? Have you reached out to the TED Talks? Have you so I'm curious to know all those 'cause yes.
So the book I'm currently like most excited about working on is just fiction, and it's just like a passion project.
Sure.
But I have taken a course for like a TED Talk course to kind of
Mhm.
like prepare you for what that would look like. But I have not done a lot of reaching out to that community yet. I think I've I get a little bit gun shy when it comes to putting myself out there. I'm like, who wants to hear this? Like, nobody wants to hear this story. No, you know what I mean? Like, you get that, right?
I
You just
do.
you just like you get in your head about it, or at least I do. And so I think I'm finally to a point now where I'm ready to really start talking about it publicly, and further building that community of people that are like, I see you, I am you, and we need to have this conversation on bigger and bigger platforms.
I agree with that. I love that idea. It's I believe that there are so many things that people can teach us. And like I can learn from, like, I don't have that issue. You do, but it helps me become a better person to be a little bit more empathetic and say, like, wonder what they're going through today. I wonder what
Hmm.
they're seeing today. How can I view the world through their eyes that they live with currently every day?
Yep.
Know, and that just makes me a better person for it. So I'm all for learning these stories. I think that's why I started a podcast, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I love hearing the stories. I love hearing how not the stories of the pain and the suffering and all that stuff, but hearing the stories of the triumphs and the breakthroughs and the what they're doing now and how they're changing the world and the platforms that they're building and the audiences that they're reaching and the people that are joining together to support them and people that normally don't have a voice, people that normally are just stuck in the shadows still reaching out to these people now and hearing their voices and stuff. To me, that is it's absolutely amazing because grief transcends more
Yes.
than just death. Grief
Hmm.
is a part of life. Absolutely. And we're not told how to
100%.
deal with it. We have no idea. No
Nope.
idea.
Like it's one of those things that it's like, how is this not something that we learn from a younger age? Because even like kids experience grief, and I don't just mean it, the death of someone close to them. Just
Right.
like what we're talking about, they experience it too, and have no idea half the time how to handle it unless they have really amazing parents who are very aware. And a lot of adults aren't, unfortunately. Um,
No, I don't think our society is very conducive to that, to be honest,
mm-mm,
100%. It's more along the lines of, well, we live in America, so we have this idea that it's been perpetuated for decades and decades and decades. Like, get up and go to work. You go to work,
mm-hmm,
you provide. You do not have time to down, like if you have a mental illness, then that's a check mark against you. If you have a medical
mm-hmm.
issue, that's a check mark against you. If you grief, don't even bring that shit to me because we're not talking about it at all. And
Yep.
so it's like you have all these checks. It's like, okay, I just want to like do my thing and go about it without causing too much. But then it comes a point in time you're like, but wait, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge problem on a massive scale. And so, yeah, I think that's another reason why I started the podcast is because the grief is more than just losing a loved one.
Right.
Born
Well,
with
and it's
grief.
so,
We're born with it.
yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And there is also this measure to, kind of play off of what you just said is how do I be a part of this society that I am forced to be a part of when I have all of these check marks against me in what society says is this is what you should be. This is what should
Yeah.
be happening. This is who you should be. This is what you should be doing. We're shitting all over ourselves all the time,
Hmm.
right? And when you are then forced to face the reality of life hitting you in whatever way it does, suddenly you don't know where you fit or how you fit or how to maneuver. And I think a lot of people's methodology is to just shove it down. Let's just
Yep.
shove it down. Let's just
100%.
pretend that everything's okay.
I don't want to
Um,
cause attention to myself. Let me
yes.
just put my blinders on and do what I'm supposed to do, and everything will magically work out until
Yep.
I'm 90 and I realize all the regrets that I have in life and the things I could have done differently.
Yep.
The shoulda,
Like
coulda,
what would have
wouldas.
happened? Exactly. Like what would have happened if I just found a way to own it?
I could have done this. I
Mm-hmm.
should have done that. I would have. Anyway, I mean, that's a
Yes.
big, long rabbit trail. So, my,
Yeah.
and but I do believe that people were born with grief, like babies, especially like when they're born, like a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but it's a traumatic experience to be
Oh
born,
yeah.
just in be born.
Absolutely.
And then when you don't get your bottle, you're in grief immediately because you're not getting something
Mm-hmm.
you want or something that you feel you need or whatever it is, and then we just keep growing with that, but we don't talk about it.
Right. It's just
Uh,
it's just the seed in us that continues to grow and be added to over time as life hands us more and more that we don't know what to do with. And I think that's where I have I am a staunch believer in therapy. I think everyone should be in therapy. Like, even if you think you don't need therapy, you probably do. You
I'm
know,
pretty sure
like,
probably do. It's one thing I have never been able to pull myself into is actually going to see a therapist.
hmm
My father, I swear, I love him to pieces. He's passed away now. Been gone since 2005, but he
mm,
was a criminal.
mm,
And of course you don't talk to people. You don't tell people anything.
right, right.
And it was a big deal for me when I wrote my books to actually put words on paper because that was another thing. You don't write anything down because that's how they'll get you because of all those things, right?
hmm
So like breaking these traditions and things that you were raised, it's not like he ever told me don't write anything down, but that was the lifestyle that we had lived. It wasn't, he never
Yes.
like said, hey, don't ever write this down. But it was like, this is what he did. He wrote in code. And so I could understand that code, and
hmm
but it's the same thing like therapists, and back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, it was like, "Pff, who needs a therapist? They're just a bunch of quacks. They just want to take your,
Right.
they don't need to know my business. Who the hell are they? And of course he didn't want to tell his business because, then they'd have to report him and all that jazz. So it's
Yes.
just this big circle that just, kept going. And so I don't know. But I believe that people need to get help, and however they get help is healthy.
Yes.
As long as it is not like bellying up to the bar or
As long as it's not
a drug
hurting
dealer
you or
down the
hurting
road
others.
or yes.
Yes.
Like a healthy way, going to
Well, it's just
therapy
like,
or groups or
yeah,
whatever.
yes. And it's just like, I have friends who are sober now, and not all of them went to AA to get sober. There are many
Correct.
ways to make it happen for yourself, and like they're
There
just
are.
as successful in their sobriety as people who went to AA. It's just
I agree
like,
with that.
yeah,
But yeah, I believe that if you need therapy, go get it, whatever form that feels for you. And
yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
everybody does need therapy. I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
But I didn't know. So you're an entrepreneur, correct?
Correct.
And you have your own business and stuff. You
I
work for
do.
yourself, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about that because I have to. I'll get back to what I'm thinking in just a moment. But tell me about your business. Tell me what you do.
Yeah, so my business has had several iterations since I started it. I had to give up a 10-year career as a hairstylist because of my physical issues. So,
Hmm.
that was I always had this desire to have a business that I could do from anywhere. I had this just like I needed to travel. Like the first time I ever went overseas and I went to Italy and I just like it lit me up and I was like I need this all the time. Like it was
Right.
so there was a seed planted at that moment that was like, I want a business I can do from anywhere. But I was trained to do hair. I was really fucking good at it too. Like I don't have any qualms in saying that. Like I was really good at it. My clients, it was just it just was aligned,
Mhm.
and um giving that up was a combination of that desire to have a business I could do from anywhere, but more so because my body couldn't handle it anymore.
Right.
And I thought I had gone through a really, really horrible breakup with somebody I'd been with for 2 years, ended up being a narcissist, like an actual one, not just a buzzword one.
Sure.
Um, and my life just got flipped upside down, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I like something's got to change. And that was when I came out of the closet, if you will,
Hmm.
and gave up my career as a hairstylist and started going through coach training. Because at the time I thought I wanted to help other people through breakups,
Sure.
as I had done. And I did that for a while. Had several clients and they were finding success working with me and it was great. But what I was realizing through the course of creating that business was that I really liked the setup part of the business. I liked the back end stuff, like the nerdy stuff. I liked setting up websites and doing email lists and creating funnels and all these little other tasks that most people hate. And I was like, no, this is fun. Like, I like this. So I sort of transitioned out. As I was still kind of coaching on the side, I started building websites on the other side. And then I just little by little kind of let go of the coaching part
Hmm.
and was focusing solely on this other stuff. And then it wasn't like that all was kind of happening in 2018. And then I finally, it took me a long time. I was hesitant to call myself a virtual assistant. I don't know why. It was just, there was something about that I was like, I don't know. Like, are
Right.
people going to actually pay me like a living wage for this? And because you hear about people in other countries doing it for like pennies on, I mean, just pennies. And don't even get me into that because I can go off on a whole tangent about that. But, and how wrong it is. You should always pay people a living wage no matter what. I digress. But I finally was like, no, like that's really, I can be a virtual assistant and not have to do, like, I don't like doing people's schedules. I don't want to book flights for you. Like, I have ADHD. I will book you on the wrong day. I have enough time booking, like hard enough time booking myself
Right.
correctly. Um, but I realized that I could pick and choose what I did as a virtual
Yep.
assistant and pick and choose my specialties. And that's what I did. And I um, was in a relationship last year that wasn't incredibly supportive of my business. And I was focusing on being a bonus parent and entering this new family and all these different things. And I was kind of letting my business fall to the wayside.
Hmm.
That relationship ended. I actually got a part-time job at Trader Joe's, which is was a great decision for community building. Loved working there. Horrible decision for somebody with physical disabilities. So,
I can imagine.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this for a while I focus on rebuilding my business.
Yeah.
And then I really only ended up working there for about 4 or 5 months. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, this isn't working. And so I quit and just threw myself into rebuilding my business. And it's amazing what happens when your intention is fully focused on something. My business is has grown by leaps and bounds. I'm about two clients away from not being able to accept any new clients. Um, and it's just been, and I can work from bed, which I have to a lot, and I can work from anywhere. So when I'm feeling up to it, I can go to coffee shops, or like my girlfriend and I are going to Maine next week and I'm going to work from there for a few days
Cool.
while we explore. And I'm fulfilled. It's like I can't travel full time. I tried that for a while and I didn't like it
Mhm.
actually. And but I can do these things. It's like for me, working from anywhere now means I can work from home when I want. I can work from a coffee shop when I want. I can go on the road with my girlfriend because she travels for work, and I can do that. Um, and it's that freedom to be able to do any of those things based on what my body can do at any given time that I think I was always really after. Like, I think it's like I knew deep down somewhere that like that's what I needed, was that kind of
Mhm.
freedom. It wasn't about traveling all the time. Um, but it was about not having to answer to anybody but myself and the clients that I choose. So,
Right. Well, I mean, that's the dream that we're sold, right? Work from anywhere, travel all the time. This needs to be the next go if you're an entrepreneur. But it's like, I don't want to travel all the time. I, my house is my sanctuary and I've built it that
yes.
way. I don't need a vacation from it. Like
Yep.
when you become in love with your the things that you do, the things that light you up in the world, like it's no longer work, it becomes a passion.
Yep.
And to be able to take that and do that whenever you want and make money for it, that it pays your bills because that's, the going currency, whatever, and
Yes.
that's it's a beautiful thing. Not a lot of people see that or do that
It's,
or have
and
the
it's not
ability
an
to do it.
easy, that's the thing. It's like entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
No.
It's not for everyone and it's not easy. I mean, there have been bumps in the road. I have made financial decisions that weren't great, that I'm still recovering from. It's not all been like butterflies and rainbows over here, but at the end of the day, I came right back to it because I was like, I can't work for other people. Like, businesses don't understand disabilities. Like, they act like they do what they have to do to be ADA
Right.
compliant, but it's like at the end of the day, it is a burden to a lot of businesses
Hmm.
to have disabled people working for them.
Right.
Um, and the number of people in my communities that have lost their jobs and
Yeah.
things because they have, similar issues to me, other issues, chronic fatigue, like all kinds of stuff. It's unbelievable. Um, and I just knew, I was like, I know that I have it in me to run my own business. I have to do this. So I did.
Good for you. Do you think that that mindset aspect, because running a business, okay, when you become an entrepreneur, and this was the point that I was going to lead up to before. So becoming an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, I don't know if you've heard my story about losing my daughter and then 5 years later losing my granddaughter. So there's this, people ask me what I did, how I made it through it, all the things. And for me, I would have to say that my saving grace was that I became an entrepreneur prior to losing her. So
Mm-hmm.
before I became an entrepreneur, I didn't do any sort of mindset work because why would I need it? Like, I don't need to be a better person. I'm already a person. I don't need to learn how to be a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you become an entrepreneur, it's like, no, mindset game is the game. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's the mindset game. And so that helped me tremendously through
Mm-hmm.
the loss of both of them and through,
Yeah.
other losses and stuff as well. Excuse me. And so I was curious if that helped you along the way as well, like with the whole mindset stuff going through, with the disabilities and stuff like that you have.
Oh yeah. Mindset work is everything. It's everything. And I've done like an array of modalities of mindset work because I think it's good to try different things.
Sure.
And, I most recently did like a breakthrough session that's very much in with like neuro linguistic programming or NLP. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar. Um, I'm not even good at explaining it, but
I'm not
it,
either.
we did a lot of digging into like not not really past life stuff, but we back into childhood kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
traumas that date that you don't even that doesn't even enter your mind anymore because it happened so long ago, or you don't realize things that are still impacting you that happened so long ago. And um, so there's been a lot of reading of different mindset, a lot of nonfiction reading, doing the mindset work, challenging myself, challenging my beliefs. Um, and I truly believe all the mindset work that I've done is why I'm able to function the way that I am in the face of what I'm dealing with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't express how much mindset work has helped me along my journey as well, like with
Hmm.
just dealing with it, keeping the family together,
Oh yeah.
watching out for the other children to, for signs of suicide or,
Yep.
all the things, that you never would have thought of before,
Hmm.
but I mean, who knew it would play a part in my world, right?
Well, and I think you don't realize always what you're made of until you're put into situations that you never thought you would be in.
Absolutely. 100%
You
agree with
know, I think we're all terrified of things that could happen,
that.
but then
Hmm.
you look at people who have had those things happen and you're like, wow, like they're making it. Like I've had several friends over the years that have lost children, and it is the absolute worst thing a person could go through. And I look at them and I see what they're doing and how they have continued to process that grief and what they have done in the face of that grief. And it's like, it's, it's almost unreal because I've never been through it. And I look at it and I'm like,
Hmm.
how? Like, how are you? But then they look at me and they're like, well, how are you? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay,
I do the
like,
same thing with every
okay.
guest. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Like
Right.
even the parents that have lost children because it's distinctly different with each one. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, how did you make it through this? Like, what tell me all the secrets because I want to know them all, And it's
Yeah.
not really secrets, it's just you do what you have to do to survive. You do what you have to do to make it
Hmm.
through. You have to do what you have to do to make it to tomorrow.
Yep.
And then you
Yep.
make a plan for, everything else in between.
Hmm. It's just like one foot in front of the other every day, you know?
Oh my gosh.
I have loved the conversation. This has been amazing. So, where
Yeah.
can people find you? Like to follow you, to support your business, like all that? Give me some links. Let me know.
Yeah. So Instagram's a really great place to follow me. My handle is Ronnie Morgan, Ronni, no E. A lot of people want to add the E. There's no E. So at Ronnie Morgan on Instagram. My business page on Facebook is Rooted Social Creative. If you're interested in what I do for a living, and you can always message me through there. My website of the same name, rootedsocialcreative.com. And currently, RonnieMorgan.com is down, but will be back up, and that is where my blog will be housed. So if you give me a follow on my Facebook page or on Instagram, I will be announcing when that goes back live again, when you can follow my journey that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can you leave our audience with one piece of advice for someone who may be going through similar what you're doing, or
Yeah, one
what
piece
you're
of
going through?
advice.
Not what you're doing, but what you're going through.
Yes. Um, don't give up on yourself.
Mm.
Don't give up on yourself and find a way to fully embody the fact that you don't have to be or do a certain thing in order to be worthy of a life well lived and of the love that you want and of the career that you want. You get to do this on your own terms. Society does not get to define that for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for
Thank
being a
you.
part of the podcast. And if this resonated with you, please like, share, follow, subscribe, all the things. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Release. All the links plus a few extras are posted in the show notes below. And if you think someone you know could benefit by listening to this episode, please share it with them. And as always, keep going, keep being, keep doing. You are amazing.